its savor here or gained it there, the mere blank waving of the word suggestion, as if it were a banner, gives no light. Dr. Goddard, whose candid psychological essay on faith cures ascribes them to nothing but ordinary suggestion, concludes by saying that, quote, "Religion," and by this he seems to mean our popular Christianity, "has in it all there is in mental therapeutics, and has it in its best form. Living up to our religious ideas will do anything for us that can be done." Close quote. And this in spite of the actual fact that the popular Christianity does absolutely nothing, or did nothing until mind-cure came to the rescue. Footnote: within the churches, a disposition has always prevailed to regard sickness as a visitation, something sent by God for our good, either as chastisement, as warning, or as opportunity for exercising virtue, and in the Catholic Church, of earning merit. Illness, says a good Catholic writer, quote, "is the most excellent of corporeal mortifications, the mortification which one has not oneself chosen, which is imposed directly by God, and is the direct expression of his will. If other mortifications are of silver," Monsignor Gay says, "this one is of gold, since although it comes of ourselves, coming as it does of original sin, still, on its greater side, as coming, like all that happens, from the providence of God, it is of divine manufacture. And how just are its blows, and how efficacious it is! I do not hesitate to say that patience in a long illness is mortification's very masterpiece, and consequently the triumph of mortified souls." Close quote. According to this view, disease should in any case be submissively accepted, and it might under certain circumstances even be blasphemous to wish it away. Of course, there have been exceptions to this, and cures by special miracle have at all times been recognized within the Church's pale, almost all the great saints having more or less performed them. It was one of the heresies of Edward Irving to maintain them still to be possible. An extremely pure faculty of healing after confession and conversion on the patient's part, and prayer on the priest's, was quite spontaneously developed in the German pastor Johann Christoph Blumhardt in the early 40s, and exerted during nearly 30 years. Blumhardt's Life of Zundel gives in chapters 9, 10, 11, and 17 a pretty full account of his healing activity, which he invariably ascribed to direct divine interposition. Blumhardt was a singularly pure, simple, and non-fanatical character, and in this part of his work followed no previous model. In Chicago today we have the case of Dr. J. A. Dewey, a Scottish Baptist preacher whose weekly Leaves of Healing were in the year of grace 1900 in their 6th volume, and who, although he denounces the cures wrought in other sects as diabolical counterfeits of his own exclusively divine healing, must on the whole be counted into the mind-cure movement. In mind-cure circles, the fundamental article of faith is that disease should never be accepted. It is wholly of the pit. God wants us to be absolutely healthy, and we should not tolerate ourselves on any lower terms. End footnote. An idea, to be suggestive, must come to the individual with the force of a revelation. The mind-cure, with its gospel of healthy-mindedness, has come as a revelation to many whose hearts the Church Christianity had left hardened. It has let loose their springs of higher life. In what can the originality of any religious movement consist, save in finding a channel, until then sealed up, through which those springs may be set free in some group of human beings? The force of personal faith, enthusiasm, and example, and above all the force of novelty, are always the prime suggestive agency in this kind of success. If mind-cure should ever become official, respectable, and entrenched, these elements of suggestive efficacy will be lost. In its acuter stages, every religion must be a homeless Arab of the desert. The Church knows this well enough, with its everlasting inner struggle of the acute religion of the few against the chronic religion of the many, indurated into the obstructiveness worse than that which irreligion opposes to the movings of the Spirit. "We may pray," says Jonathan Edwards, quote, "concerning all those saints that are not lively Christians, that they may either be enlivened or taken away. If that be true, that is often said by some at this day, that these cold dead saints do more hurt than natural men, and lead more souls into hell, and that it would be well for mankind if they were all dead." Footnote: Edwards, from whose book on the revival of New England I quote these words, dissuades from such a use of prayer. But it is easy to see that he enjoys making his thrust at the cold dead church members. End footnote. The next condition of success is the apparent existence, in large numbers, of minds who unite healthy-mindedness with readiness for regeneration by letting go. Protestantism has been too pessimistic as regards the natural man. Catholicism has been too legalistic and moralistic, for either the one or the other to appeal in any generous way to the type of character formed of this peculiar mingling of elements. However few of us here present may belong to such a type, it is now evident that it forms a specific moral combination, well represented in the world. Finally, mind-cure has made what in our Protestant countries is an unprecedentedly great use of the subconscious life. To their reasoned advice and dogmatic assertion, its founders have added systematic exercise in passive relaxation, concentration, and meditation, and have even invoked something like hypnotic practice. I quote some passages at random. Quote, "The value, the potency of ideals is the great practical truth on which the new thought most strongly insists. The development, namely, from within outward, from small to great. Consequently, one's thought should be centered on the ideal outcome, even though this trust be literally like a step in the dark. To attain the ability thus effectively to direct the mind, the new thought advises the practice of concentration, or in other words, the attainment of self-control. One is to learn to marshal the tendencies of the mind so that they may be held together as a unit by the chosen ideal. To this end, one should set apart times for silent meditation, by oneself, preferably in a room where the surroundings are favorable to spiritual thought. In New Thought terms, this is called entering the silence." Quote, "The time will come when in the busy office or on the noisy street, you can enter into the silence by simply drawing the mantle of your own thoughts about you, and realizing that there and everywhere the Spirit of infinite love, life, wisdom, peace, power, and plenty is guiding, keeping, protecting, leading you. This is the spirit of continual prayer. One of the most intuitive men we ever met had a desk at a city office where several other gentlemen were doing business constantly and often talking loudly. Entirely undisturbed by the many various sounds about him, this self-centered faithful man would, in any moment of perplexity, draw the curtains of privacy so completely about him that he would be as fully enclosed in his own psychic aura, and thereby as effectually removed from all distractions as though he were alone in some primeval wood. taking his difficulty with him to the mystic silence in the form of idolatry.